Competitive Hearthstone is a bit of a different beast than standard play or ranked ladder Hearthstone. While anyone can participate in a competitive Hearthstone arena, to be successful it requires an in-depth understanding of matchups, tech cards, creating well-rounded lineups, as well as the endurance to play multiple games at a time. Join me while I start 2021 with no knowledge of competitive Hearthstone and see how I improve throughout the year. Becoming a Grandmaster is obviously an unrealistic expectation. I will play in both qualifiers and grassroots tournaments to monitor my improvements throughout the year, as well as aim for higher and higher end season ranks on ladder. My name is Sam, and this is Getting Competitive in Hearthstone. What is going on, everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of Getting Competitive Hearthstone. This is my first qualifiers. I'm really happy to show you some games. So the way I'm thinking about setting this up with qualifiers is just to show you some highlight games. I have 3 really good games that show off the 3 decks that I brought. Those decks were Soul Demon Hunter, Aggro Rogue, and Bomb Warrior, and we will get into those lists in a few minutes. But all this stuff will be in the timestamps. The timestamps will be in the description below. But for my first qualifiers, I thought this was going to be one and done. I ended up in the top 33, which is just awesome. So the main idea of this series is just to kind of talk about and reflect on competitive Hearthstone, where I think for the first one, it showed that I can hang with people that do play competitively, or at least have aspirations to. So I'm really happy for that. I think overall, I ended in round 5. My first round was a bye, and I went 4-1. Unfortunately, my lineup was a little weak to control lineups, and that's actually what ended me. But you've seen a game from already. There was a Demon Hunter Evolve Shaman match, but I don't know. The first one I did was really fun. I can't wait to talk about next week's in episode 6. So guys, enjoy this video, like and subscribe, and we'll get into the decks again. Timestamps in the description below. Take it easy, and I'll talk to you in a bit. So the first list I brought was, I gotta kind of be careful, the table's a little jiggly, is Soul Demon Hunter. And this is not the version I'm playing now. RonMexico and I, who is an awesome friend of the channel, kind of talked about what he was bringing, what he thought. I'll go through this list. I think this is similar to one I brought a little bit ago, but we run Eldari Studies, which is really good. I think it's a little better in Lifesteal Demon Hunter, because most of the card draw you want and getting a discount skull is awesome. We run the Soul Package, Spirit Jailer. We cut 1 Soul Shear. We have Lucky Soul Order, Marrow Slicer, and then we have Lapidary for extra damage, and Mystic for board clears. On top of that, we run Sociologist Militia. Of course, we run Skull of Gul'dan. Now, one thing about this list that I didn't love and actually cost me a game was this deck doesn't run Kayn. We run 2 Bladed Ladies instead. The version I'm running now runs Kayn because Kayn is a good card, especially when your opponent is Ram Paladin and gives you 10 mana. Aside from that, we run Il'gynoth for endgame burst with Eldrachi Warblades, and then Twin Slice, Chaos Strike, and again Lapidary and Relentless Pursuit for extra burst. We run Marrow Slicer, we've already talked about. It's just a really, really good weapon. Who knew that Demon Hunter wanted a 4-2 weapon? And then Mana Feeder, which works really well with your Hero Power. I think that this deck is really good if the meta is a little faster. There's a lot of control right now at the top, especially Silas and Priest. And my lineup actually lost to a control lineup, but I feel like against the more aggressive decks, and even the decks that take a little bit of time to get off the ground, like Not Warrior, this is actually pretty favored within the tournament meta I was playing in week 1. The second list I brought was Aggro Rogue. I was thinking about bringing Weapon Rogue, but Ron and I were talking. Ron was super helpful in this, and so was my buddy Fanboy. I will link both of them below. But this list is just super aggressive. There's a lot of card draw in cards like Cutting Class, which is not hard to get to cost 0, Greyheart Sage, and Swindle. On top of that, we also run Hook Scimitar, which is kind of the main draw of this deck. And we boost it up with Nitro Boost Poison. We can buff up Stealth Minions too, like Spy Mistress, Organ Infiltrator, and Sneaky Delinquent, which are also Greyheart Sage lets us draw off those. We have Burst like Eviscerate, and we have Cold Blood to buff up our Stealth Minions. For combo activators, we have Preparation and Backstab, If we ever need to search for lethal, we have Secret Passage. But the main draw of this deck is Crab Rider, who with Cold Blood is a 2-mana 5/4 with Russian Wind Fury. And if this connects with Face and it's buffed by Cold Blood or Nitro Boost Poison, it's just kind of nuts. And I've been running that Crab Rider in a Rage Warrior also. The card is just really, really good. And this is so aggressive that I think if you can stick on the board and just get a weapon to connect with Face, that you're going to have a lot of success. Not sure if I would bring this iteration this next week, or if I want to switch it out for something else. Again, this kind of folds to control decks, which the tournament meta kind of is right now. And the last deck I brought for my first week was Bomb Warrior. Bomb Warrior is surprisingly good for what's kind of going on, because again, decks are slower, but this deck runs so much removal. Minefield, Blade Storm, Coerce, Brawl, Sword and Board, Shield Slam. There's just so many ways to deal with big boards and big minions. Oh, and Lord Baroff. On top of that, we also have Inevitability with Wrench Caliber, which we can draw with Corsair Cash, upgrade with the card Upgrade, and buff with Krasnov. On top of that, we can bring him back with Horde Pillager. If we get into like really long matchups, we have Galakron to continually just attack Face. And Blastmaster Boom is just a really good way of closing out these games. We have Armor Gain and Draw in the form of Shield Block. We have Draw in the form of Cutting Class, which also not that hard to make cost 1 or 0. And Evil Quartermaster gives us armor as well. This whole deck is just really good at countering the slower decks right now. I think a lot of slower lineups will probably ban this list, but even against aggro matchups, I remember there was like a rogue I played against and a token druid that this deck just continually took stuff off the board because it just has so much hard removal. It just has weapons that we hit the face with or trade off with minions, and then they draw and blow up themselves. It's just a really strong deck that I'm probably going to continue to bring if the meta is as slow as it has been. So guys, let's get into the games. Thanks for watching. Remember to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll talk to y'all later. Alright, so this first game is against a Cyclone Mage. This is the Soul Demon Hunter you saw in the deck lineup explanation. And our hand's pretty heavy. I think we're just going to send this all back. Before we get into it, I have not seen these games since I played them. Probably dropped the ball on that one. I should be watching these back just to get an idea. But we will improve that with next week. And these games are at about 200 times speed. So if my commentary gets a little wonky because of this, I apologize. Hopefully we get into a good groove, and it's not really an issue. But this hand looks really good. Spirit Jailer is a great opening turn, and with that skull being drawn, we are definitely going to get over to the left side of our hand at some point. We can even get it off over as far as the left as it goes. That was a weird sentence. As of turn 4, because we can just get the Marrow Slash and Twin Slice out of our hand. However, we are going to take a Fake's trade into their Violet Spellwing because we want to keep our Spirit Jailer healthy, and we'll go face for 1. Now, they're going to play an Imprisoned Phoenix here. So one thing I did notice watching this a little bit is that I do play kind of fast, which is something I need to work on a bit. Right now it's pretty easy. We're just kind of tempoing out and drawing cards. I'm thinking of if I want to play the Mana Feeder next turn, but we should really be thinking through our plays a little more, especially as we go up in qualifiers. So our board right now is pretty good. We have the Shard Shatter Mystic to take care of any spell damage minions they can play. We can tempo out into the Marrow Slicer next turn, or we can Twin Slice if we need to. There are a lot of things we can do next turn, and this hand is just so good for that. There were some games in qualifiers where my hand just didn't really do what I needed it to do. So there was another play there. We could have Twin Sliced and then Hero Powered and played the second Panthera, traded off our first Panthera that can attack and go face for 1 again. I don't think that is too big an issue because Mage really doesn't like getting hit in the face, especially Cyclone Mage. They're going to Magic Trick here to discover a spell, but we know they're not going off because they didn't play a Sorcerer's Apprentice, but they did discover Cram Session, which will draw them 4 cards. Last turn it would have drawn them 5, so that's a little bit better than what they would have done if we didn't clear the board. So their Arcane Missiles does kill our Panthera. We will just respond by clearing their board, getting all the spell damage off the board, and getting the skull over to the left side of our hand, which is where we want it to be. And that Militia's looking pretty juicy too. I think it's summoning 3 minions right now. The skull is going to do wonders for us also, because it's drawing 3 and having them cost -3 basically is awesome. Skull's a good card. Why'd that cost 5? So they play Raz here. I think we end up taking off Raz off board just because Raz can be a little more scary. But we can also do it next turn with the Militia anyways, so it's not too big a deal. And drawing another skull that we can discount as well as the Eldrachi Warblades is fine by me. Go face, set them to 16, heal for 2. And with the Lapidary and Twin Slice in hand, that is a total of 9 damage we can push face. The Mystic will die, so we can't use that in tangent with the other ones. But we're in a really good position right now with the hand we have, with the weapon, with their health total at 15. They will go off now with Evocation and Sorcerer's Apprentice, which doesn't always feel good. Sometimes that can really change things. I think they have it. They have a Cyclone in hand, which is why they definitely brain freezed our minion that would have died to Raz anyways. Luckily, they don't freeze our face. So there's a few things we can do here. We can pop off with Militia. We can clear their board with Mystic, play the Lapidary, get up to 7 attack, and then play the Bladed Lady, which is just so much tempo in one. And then we will go face for 7 and set them to 8. We are in a really, really good position right now. I don't know what they got off of their Cyclone Mage, but this looks like it's going to be pretty good. So they will discover a spell damage minion here. But I think at this point, unless they can freeze our face and our board, they are probably not going to make it out of this one. And they get Devolving Missiles, which keeps our board really good with that Dragon's Bane. And they will clear out the Lapidary, but it won't matter. We can go face for 5 and end this game. So we are starting this game post-mulligan because you'll see here in a second, we did go over... this is the match that I played the Demon Hunter that was banned first. I showed this video last week. It was a really good game, but unfortunately we had to lose that game. And the beginning of this is just us kind of talking about that and talking with the admin. It got sorted out, so you will see a little bit of it coming up in a second. We will eviscerate their... we will backstab their token and go face for 3. And this deck is just so aggressive, and it has so much draws you're going to see throughout this game. And this is just what I was talking about. We are just discussing that. I made the mistake with the admin. We're going to just move on. So, we do backstab their Custodian, play a 2-1 and a 3-1, and go face for 3 again. I think this turn, yep, they tempo out the Pitmaster, and it develops a token. Again, we do want to just kind of keep all their stuff off the board as best we can while maintaining a board presence. So we have a few things we can do here. We can eviscerate one of their minions, trade off one of ours, go face, and play a 3-2, or we can Secret Passage and hope to find something a little better. And I do think about playing the Sneaky Delinquent here, but I think we end up going for the Secret Passage anyways. Yep, so we go Secret Passage. We get a Scimitar, which is what we want. We could have gone with the deckhand also and summon more minions. That might have been the better play in retrospect, but I think because the rope was burning, we were just a little slow. And they get a D-Roll Coaster to fill up the board, which is going to be hard for us to deal with, so we're going to refill our hand a bit with a Swindle, and then follow up with a Cutting Class, which is awesome. And again, we're just going to push damage. We really need to be aggressive and just get the damage out there. And they're going to go face for a total of 9, I believe. Yep. And evolve their board, but luckily they get a Doomsayer, which is going to clear their board out. We don't want to commit too much because of that, so we Secret Passage. Now, there are a few things we could do here. We could have done instead, we could have traded into the Mummy just to buff, just to make it so they don't have an evolve follow-up. That was one thing we could have done. We didn't do that, obviously. But they are going to refill the board here pretty well. But we also have hand refill, even though we don't have a ton of burn. But I think here they go, so they start off with a Sludge Slurper. They get the Ethereal Lackey, which will actually make this game go longer, which you'll see here in a second. And then I believe they play a Dread Corsair, and a Custodian, which is it's a big board. Luckily though, we get the Nitro Boost and the Crab. Crab is so good for dealing with boards. We can trade off into it, Nitro Boost, and draw cards. And then go face with the deckhand and set them to 5. That seems pretty good. They will trade off the Ethereal Lackey. Right now we do have lethal if they don't roll a taunt, but like I said, that Ethereal Lackey is going to get them to get back in the game a little bit. They're going to heal 3 times for 12 with that Witch's Brew. Luckily, we still have ways to be aggressive. We have 2 Delinquents that we only going to play 1 of. I think about playing the Nitro Boost on that, but instead we're going to just play another Spy Mistress. And the idea here is that we are going to be as aggressive as we can. They get the Cable Rat. I'm really hoping they don't get a Faceless Lackey. Obviously they didn't. They are going to go face, and the reason they're going face instead of trading at all is because they do have a Baroom in hand, which is why they didn't play the Lackey. And the Baroom comes down here, and that Cult Master actually kind of sucks because now they can draw cards when they trade. So they're going to draw 2, and luckily they didn't get any taunts. We get the second Eviscerate, and this will actually be lethal. I need to corrupt the... Nope, I don't actually need to, so I could have just played that, gone face, and this is actually going to be over lethal. So this is Bomb Warrior versus Token Druid. This is such a good game because there is a turn here with a Deathwing that's just phenomenal. Deathwing comes in clutch this game. We send the weapon back because we really want to keep them off the board early, and Minefield is the card that does that, and thankfully we're not punished by sending weapon back because we get Corsair's Cash, which we're going to play on to get a 3-3 weapon instead of a 3-2 weapon. But they're going to Crystal Song Portal, and that's really good for them. They don't have spells in their deck, obviously, so they can do that, but we can play the Evil Quartermaster here and get Shoot Lackey, which is awesome. They're going to end up doing here, I believe, is Lunar Eclipse and then develop with Adorable Infestation. Yep. So this is cleared perfectly by Minefield. So Minefield just does the Lord's work here. Now we do have an option to armor up. We choose not to. And I've watched this back a few times just so I can see it. And they develop a 5/5 here, which is off the Crystal Song Portal. And instead of taking 5 and sending Shoot Lackey in, I could have Shield Slammed and then taken 5 and been at 27. It's not a big deal, but against a deck that fills the board up, probably something we should have thought of. They also develop, again, more stats with Power of the Wild and Bees. We'll start off by drawing 2 here. We're going to play the Quartermaster. And we could have Shield Slam that. I guess we decided to save it. I think there were a few other ways we could have done that. We could have saved the Rush Lackey for Barov in the future, but I do have Shield Slam Barov. I could have... I don't know. There was different ways to clear this board up or do more meaningful things with this board, and I feel like going face might have been a mistake there, because now they arbor up. Luckily, we do have a Brawl in hand, and we have Barov too, so it's not a huge deal. But we will Brawl. We will trade into their 4-3, and take it off the board. Again, with Token Drill, we're just trying to keep them off the board as much as we can. That Centurion Ward is awesome because they get Tyrion, which is going to develop a weapon that can deal 15 over the next few turns. So I'm kind of on like, we need to kill them faster than they kill us at this point, especially with our hand looking the way it is. They get an Iron Bark Protector. Also, I have Barrel, which can deal with this, but we get Deathwing off the top, and Deathwing is going to just take it out. Deathwing is such a clutch card here. They will develop again with the Dreamway Guardians and the... I don't know the name of that card, I apologize, but that's also on the board now too. He does not face tank the Deathwing, and luckily we get some armor here. I can always bear off if I need to, but we get heal for 10, draw 2, and then Blade Storm comes in clutch also. So I'm thinking how I want to do this. I decide to Blade Storm, and then Shield Slam his minion, and then hit him in the face for 16. There were different ways I could have done that, and I think that was definitely the most optimal way. And now I guess they're wishing they'd face tanked the Deathwing. And they draw 3 cards, and discard their Prime, and concede. So this is the last game that I wanted to show. This is the game that I lost. I did lose again to a Priest after this, but the Priest game was really uninteresting. But this is Ramp Paladin or Cheese Paladin versus my Soul Demon Hunter. And this game really shows why I think Kayn is very important in this deck. But essentially the idea here is that we are going to put on pressure in the early game enough so when they do eventually, like say Nozdormu, we can clear the board. I actually don't think the Eldari Stray's coin was the right play there. I should have probably held off, knowing that is the case. Unfortunately, I think that was the first misplay of this game. They're going to put a bit of pressure on, but we will develop the Panthera, as well as draw Chaos Strike, which is nice, and go face. So our plan here is to stave off the Nas as long as we can. They will get a Nas, a tutor for the Nas here. They do also have coin. No, they don't have coin. We have coin. I just used it. But we will go face for 4. Again, just putting that pressure on. But they are pretty smart and are able to put on their own amount of pressure by developing Murlocs, by developing with a Ward Leader and pushing 6. Right now, they have 14, which is not a good place for us to want to be. And I do apologize. This turn takes a little longer because we are trying to figure out what to do without killing this Red Scale Dragon Tamer. There's a few things I could do. I could just clear the board. We decided Chaos Strike. Luckily, if we get the only Soul Share in our deck, we take out the Ward Leader and go face for another 7. Again, trying to put that pressure on before they do the dumb stuff that Ramp Paladin is known to do. But looking at our hand, we're in a decent spot. We have a total of 8 damage with the Marrow Slicer and Relentless Pursuit, but this board is really just high pressure, and we're at 12, and we kind of need to get rid of this board or else we will probably lose. We can't really skull into anything, so unfortunately it does look like we have to clear this board with the Shard Shatter or else we will lose next turn. We don't have the healing, we don't have Eldrazi Warblades in our hand, unfortunately. We can't really equip a weapon and hope to kill them. We can kind of hope that we can do it over the next few turns, but we really need this board gone. One thing we can do, and we actually do, is develop the Panthera here just to put pressure on the board. Again, this is 5 damage. And there's the Nas. Along with a Broom, which clears our board up. So with 5, they would have been at 10. If they had just played the Nas there and not the Broom, they would have died. Unfortunately, they did play the Nas there. We will develop the Lapidary along with a Relentless Pursuit and develop it should be both our Blade Ladies. If it's not, okay, good it is. We will push 9 damage face and clear up their board a little bit. We're in a good spot. Not the best spot, but if they do just tip the scales, which they don't do, they get a Colossus. We could have cleared it. They also get the Strongman, unfortunately. So we do have the what's it called? The what's his name? Hoganoth in our hand. So if we do get the I can't think of the name. Eldrachi Warblade, we would have won this game. Unfortunately, we didn't here. We're trying to kind of draw into it. The Relentless Pursuit is pretty nice, but if we drew into the Eldrachi Warblades, we would have just been so much happier. Unfortunately, we didn't. We are going to take their Strongman and leave up 8 damage. Now, the thing is here, if they go face and don't trade, we can't even win by trading with our face in the Eldrachi Warblades. Unfortunately, they're going to play Clowns here in a second. And this is why I think Kane is super important in this matchup. But you'll see that here in a second. We're just looking for the Warblades. Like, if they go face there, we can't trade into a Clown. There's the Clown. We need the top deck for the Eldrachi Warblades. Unfortunately, we do not get it. And that's going to be a bottom right.